Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Marie and I use Adobe Illustrator to create graphics. Today we have a packaging tutorial with Dieline and 3D simulation. Let's get started with today's tutorial, which is going to be pretty complete because we're going to create a custom packaging with cutout from scratch by creating the shape, the graphic, and then the Dieline to go with it. So I'm going to start by creating this rectangle, which I will call base for now, but later it will become the side of our packaging. So as we go along, I'm going to already start to create the graphics that goes into the packaging. Since this is a custom packaging, it's not our standard. It is a box, a cube, but it's not our standard cube box because it has a cutout in it. So I'm going to add this dark green square with some text that we will fix later on with better graphic. Actually, I'm going to add this other yellow square where our actual graphic will be going later on. I had to speed some of these recordings, otherwise it was going to be way too long. But it's okay because I'm sure you already have a base knowledge of how to use the rectangle tool, the type tool, and other stuff. So now I'm going to create the square, which is going to be the bottom of our packaging. And this is where I would put the info, the barcode, and the required marks. Now I'm going to make a dragged copy of our rectangle and turn it 180 degrees. And this is going to be our, let me think, second side of the packaging. Then I'm going to make another dragged copy here to the left, and this is going to be the back of our packaging. I will add the names of each side afterwards, so it'll be easier to remember. Now I'm going to make a dragged copy of the bottom and bring it here because this is going to be the top. So the top and the bottom have the same size, and the sides have the same size. Since the top and the bottom are squares, the sides will have the same height and the same width, even though they are rectangles. I hope that was clear. I'll probably make a more simplified version of a packaging tutorial later on. This is for people that already have a little bit of knowledge. So this is an A4 artboard. So I turned the packaging that I created so far so it'll fit on the artboard. Also, I'm going to add these writings here, which tell us what part of the packaging the individual rectangles are. So we have the top, the right, the back, the bottom, the left. We are missing, well, the front, which is what I probably should have started out with. But since, as I said, this is a custom, unique packaging, it's not our usual standard packaging, I had to start where it made sense. So now that we have all of the parts that are visible once the packaging is closed, I'll be adding the packaging flaps. So I created a, as you can see, a rectangle, which is going to be one of the flaps. And then I'm creating these other rectangles that I am going to use to create the flap shape, because it's not your standard rectangle, but it's going to have these little cutouts so it'll fit properly into the folds when we close our packaging. because if it's the exact same size as the side of the packaging, it won't fit properly. It has to be slightly smaller. So as you can see, I used those rectangles as guidelines, and then I created this shape. I'm going to round some of the angles here and color it green. Okay, so that's our first flap. I'm going to make a flipped copy and drag it over to this other side. Okay, and these are exactly alike but flipped, as I said. So now I'm going to go here to the back. As I said, this is, I keep repeating it, it's not our standard packaging, so it's a little bit confusing. Okay, so let's go here to the back, and we're going to add this smaller flap. And it's going to be just a rectangle with rounded angles on the top. And then we're going to go to the left over here and add our first and only glue flap. This is going to be the only flap that will be glued on this packaging. Always on the left here on the bottom, but that is actually the right of the left side. We're going to add another flap that is not going to be glued, because as I said, the only glued one is that one that we did before this. And then I'm going to make a dragged copy of this last one and drag it here on the bottom of the bottom, but I'm going to modify it because it has to be smaller, because this where the bottom is going to have one of our cutouts. And obviously we can't have the flap going on parts that are going to be cut out. So I'm going to add another very small one here on the bottom of the front side. And this is kind of like a tongue lock, because it's going to be folded and inserted in a cut that's going to be between the bottom and the bottom flap. So now that we have our packaging and all the flaps, we can start with our cutout. I'm going to start by rounding this angle here on the bottom of the packaging. Then I'm going to create this circle, and I'm going to cut it out of the edge of the top side of the packaging. I have to cut this circle out of all the parts that are on the top part of the packaging. Then I'm going to duplicate these two circles, because I'm going to use them to create this S shape. So the front of the packaging is going to have this cutout with this wave that continues from the cutout on the top part of the packaging. If you're wondering why I created the graphics for the packaging before I had the Dieline, it's just because if I created just the Dieline, you couldn't see the direction that the graphics on each side would have. So even if it takes longer, that I have to modify what I already did, it's okay. That way you already kind of had a clear picture of the direction and the graphics from the beginning. So now that I had the front cut out, I'm going to have the right side with the same cutout. So I made a copy, and then I flipped it and replaced the side that was on the right. Now that I have all the cutouts, I'm just modifying the graphics here so that they're all lined up once we print the packaging and put it together. Now, just for the purpose of this video, I'm going to add this barcode here. And now I'm going to create this very quick geometric style graphic that I'm going to add on the packaging for placing all of those yellow squares that I put in the beginning. So this is just random shapes with random lines with like a greenish, like a tropical color scale. So as I said, I'm going to put these here, replacing all of these yellow shapes that I had put on the sides. Last but not least, there we go. It's a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to take the stroke off of all the parts here, because this is just going to be our graphic layer. Matter of fact, I'm going to call this layer the graphic artboard. Then I'm going to put the text on a separate layer, because here we're going to create the Dieline like it would be if we had to print this packaging. So all the lines that are going to be folded, so not cut, they're just going to be folded, I'm going to indicate with this dotted line here. Okay, then I'm going to select all of the shapes and go to Pathfinder Unite so that they're one shape, and this is going to be our cut line, this black one, this black stroke. And here I'm going to create the indication. So the dotted red line is the fold line. Then we have the black line, which is the cut out. Then I'm going to add some bleed, 5 millimeters of bleed. It will depend on where you get the packaging printed. And here, with this solid pink color, I'm going to indicate the flap that is going to be glued. As I said before, that's the only one that will be glued. Now the only thing that is missing is the cut where this tongue lock is going to be inserted. So I'm going to take the tongue lock here just so I know how big the cut has to be. I'm going to bring it over, and where I just did that black line, continue black line, is where the cut's going to be. Okay, so now since I said before, my artboard was set to A4, an A4 size, but since the packaging did not all fit on an A4, I just changed the artboard to an A3. Alrighty, we are finished with the first part of this tutorial, which was creating the packaging. Now, to go with this packaging, we're going to create a 3D simulation. Let's start by selecting one of the sides of our packaging, one without the cutout, like this one. Select it and copy it and bring it onto our new document. Since it's sideways, I'm going to turn it 90 degrees to make it straight. Then I'm going to select the top or the bottom, in this case the bottom. Go to transform where it has the dimensions and copy the width. 3D extrude. Since this is a square, the width and the height are the same. In my case, it's 7 centimeters. In my case, copy that, 7 centimeters. Go back here to my new document. I'm going to change the fill color of the square to a light gray, stroke to none, and then go to Effect, 3D Extrude. Where it says Extrude Depth, I'm going to paste the width that I had copied. So now we have a 3D cube, which is the size of our packaging. Now we need to apply our the graphics of our packaging to this 3D cube. So we're going to go back to the packaging, and I'm going to select all of these sides that are part of our packaging without the flaps. We don't need the flaps. So we have all 6 sides of our packaging that we're going to apply to the cube. So let's start by selecting the front. And go to the Symbols panel, create new symbol, name it if you want, and change it to graphics. And click OK. As you can see, the new symbols are added here to the symbol panel. I'm gonna, you should basically turn these before saving them, but it doesn't matter. I'm gonna turn them afterwards, just so we don't get confused. So repeat this with each one of the sides. Select it, go to the symbol panel, create new, name it, change it to graphic, and then press OK. Now we're going to select our cube, go to Appearance, and double click on 3D Extrude to reopen our 3D panel. Then we're going to go to Map Art, and here is where we apply our symbols. So with this red square, Illustrator is indicating which side of the cube is selected. So in this case, it's the side. So I added the symbol side 02. Now if you move with the arrow, see it's selecting the back of the cube, which is the second side. So I added that. Then if you move the arrow again, it's going to put that red square where it's the back. Now it's on the bottom. So I'm going to, first of all, select Shade Artwork so we get the shade of our cube onto our graphics. Then, just for now, I'm going to put Invisible. I can't read it, it's cut out. Just because I need to make sure that this cutout goes here in front. I couldn't see it. So now I'm going to deselect the invisible cube again. Now we're on the front side of our cube, so I'm going to put the symbol front. I have to turn these here because I didn't do it before I saved them, but it doesn't matter. And then last but not least, the top, which again I have to make sure that the cutout goes on this angle here on the front. So now that I've added all the parts, I'm going to select Invisible. Wait, first of all, I'm going to put OK and show you that all the our packaging was added to all the sides of the cube. I'm going to add a little bit of perspective. And then I'm going to go back to Map Art where I'm going to select Invisible Geometry. Now you can see that the outside of the graphics is okay, but the inside is supposed to be white. Instead, we have a flipped version of our graphic. So no problem. I didn't delete these symbols yet because we can go back and modify them. So once you have the final position of your cube, so you know that you're not going to move it again, like in my case, I know I'm going to keep it like this, I'm going to go here and change the 3 sides that you see from the inside to this light gray. So I'm going to delete all the graphics that we don't need. I'm going to change the green to gray. And see that X, that was the center before when the graphics was there because I had a mask. Now it's going to be moved to the center because there's no graphics anymore. So now we're going to go back to the Appearance panel, double click on 3D Extrude, Preview. See, it automatically updated our symbols. The only thing is that the center is off because it changed when I deleted the mask parts. So all I'm going to do is move them, put them centered again. You have to be really precise, because if the symbol doesn't cover the whole side, you're gonna get some see-through parts, like lines that aren't covered. If you go here on more options, you can play with the light. I'm gonna lower the ambient light just to give it more shade, a more contrast effect. You can move the light, add another light, change the values. Okay, so now we have our 3D packaging. So we just need to add a little bit of shadow and a background, but first we're gonna create the product that goes inside, which is a candle. I don't know if I've said this throughout the whole tutorial. This is a candle packaging. So I'm gonna use this rectangle as reference of how tall and wide the candle is going to be. I'm just going to draw half a candle because we're going to use the 3D revolve effect instead of the extrude. So this is the outside of the candle, which is the glass. Now I'm going to do the inside, which is the wax. Change this to a gray and the wax to yellow. Now, I don't need to add graphics to this candle, but just for the purpose of this video, I'm going to. So I'm going to get this pattern here, and I'm going to mask it into this really long rectangle. And this is going to be kind of like the label. So while it's selected, go to the symbol panel, create new symbol, select graphic, name it. Okay, and we're going to put it just on the outside of the candle. Now I have a problem. I'm going to modify the shape here a little bit. I have a problem with the screen recorder. It's only recording my Adobe Illustrator, and it's not recording the windows anymore. So like the symbol window. But you already saw how I created the symbol before. Unfortunately, the same thing is for the 3D window. The screen recorder didn't record it. So we have these two symbols. Make sure that the yellow one is underneath, the green is on top. Select them both and group them. While the group is selected, go to Effect, 3D Revolve. Okay, here I was able to open the window, the 3D Revolve, but I had already put all the settings. So I added the same perspective as the box. I put revolve from right side, change the lights. Now go to map art and find, see this, the part which is the outside of the glass. In my case, it's this big weird shape right here. And I'm going to add the symbol candle that I created, the candle label. I'm going to put shade artwork, but I'm not going to select invisible geometry. I click OK. If you want to change the settings, just go to Appearance, select 3D, Revolve, and it'll open the panel. Here you can't see it. Now I'm going to select the box and go to Object Expand. So now we don't have a 3D symbol anymore, but we have the shapes that make our packaging. So I'm going to select these front three that have the graphics when I enter the group, copy them, and then delete. Then if you have to modify anything on these the back three sides here, use the direct selection tool to move the anchor points. Like, see, there's this little gap here. And it's because my symbol wasn't placed correctly on the map art. Then I'm going to exit the group, go and click on Control F to paste in front of the candle. So now our candle is going to look like it's inside of the box because we have the three white sides that are behind the candle and our three graphic sides that are on top. And due to the cutout that we created, we can see the candle inside. Again, use the direct selection tool here if there's a gap as well. I'm going to use the rectangle tool with this gradient to create the part that you light up in the candle. And here is our 3D simulation. Almost finished. We just need to add a background, so use the rectangle tool, create a background that covers the artboard, and then arrange it send to back. I'm going to color it green. I'm going to create this other rectangle and make it a transparent black, blur it a little bit. And then this third rectangle, which is all black, to create the shadow. I'm also going to add a little bit of gradient here as well. I'm sorry that my screen recorder isn't recording any panels, for example the gradient panel, but it's okay. I'm sure you have a base knowledge of Adobe Illustrator if you're following this video. I will try to make a more simplified packaging tutorial, like a standard packaging for beginners. So now I'm going to enter the group here, create this ellipse, which is going to be the shadow of our candle inside of the packaging. Blur it, lower the transparency. And we are finished. We've created our packaging, custom packaging with cutout and Dieline, and the 3D simulation of the packaging and our object that goes inside of the packaging. This whole tutorial was created with Adobe Illustrator. I'm sorry about the trouble I had with the screen recorder, but I hope that you guys got to follow this tutorial without any problems anyways. Please hit the subscribe button and don't miss out on any of my future videos. Ciao!